All right. Welcome everyone to the first public information session for Maple Woods. I am Anna Siedzik from Harborlight Homes. I am a senior project manager and I am the lottery agent, which is a fancy way of saying I am running the lottery. So if you have any questions, I'll be the best person to try to answer them. So I'm going to go ahead. We have a slide presentation prepared. I'll go through it. It's fairly detailed, so it has a lot of information to it. So I'll go ahead and buzz through it. If you have a burning question, go ahead and feel free to interrupt, but you might have it answered later. This might be a moment where if you wait till the end, you may have your question answered. So happy to be here for those in the room, for those on Zoom. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Can I get a thumbs up from someone in the room or a quick response? Mary, can you hear me okay? Okay, thumbs up. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here with our presentation. Everyone can hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. So, all right. So many messages. All right. So this is Maple Woods. It is a 45-unit senior housing development that is currently under construction in Wenham. This is the artist rendering of what we believe the outside will look like when it is all done. Before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about Harborlight Homes. Harborlight Homes is a nonprofit community development corporation. We build and manage affordable housing for seniors, family, disabled, and homeless populations throughout Essex County. We advocate for just and equitable communities because everyone deserves a home. These are a picture of some of our other properties that you may be more familiar with across the North Shore. So you see here listing, these are all of our sort of current properties that we have. We have senior housing in a variety of communities, supportive senior housing, which is senior housing with some wraparound or on-site services. We have family and individual housing. We also manage a first-time homebuyer program out on the Cape Ann Land Trust in Gloucester. And then you see there on the other side of the screen, we have many upcoming developments. One of them is Maple Woods, but we also have properties in development in a number of communities across the North Shore. So lots of good things happening. I'm going to try to maybe move this away. All right. So a little bit more about us. Right now, we have over 450 homes in current management with over 600 residents. We have more than 500 names on waiting lists. Our average waiting list period right now for senior housing is between 1 to 2 years at our Beverly property. For our Rockport properties, it's closer to 5 years, if you can imagine. So the need is desperate for senior housing. We see similar wait lists on our family housing between 2 to 4 years, depending on the location. We have a footprint in a lot of communities across the North Shore, but are expanding. One particular piece of information I want to highlight on this slide is that Harborlight voluntarily pays its local property taxes. So one of the pieces of information out there is that we don't pay taxes because we're a nonprofit. That is untrue. We voluntarily pay tax from closer to $5 million in property taxes that we've paid across our communities. So this development here in Wenham will add money to the assessor's database. And I know that's a really important issue for people. So if you hear that we don't pay taxes, that's actually not true. We do. Really important detail for communities. All right, a little bit about Maple Woods. I want to try to move this so it's out of the way. And it's actually... I apologize for this. There's a lot. Zoom is acting a little crazy this morning. I'm trying to lower this so you can actually see the information, but there we go. Then we have the captioning. Sorry, folks. That work okay? A little tricky. Okay, about Maple Woods. Maple Woods is located at 62 Maple Street, kind of right behind Burnett's Garage. Do folks generally kind of know where that is? Yeah. Okay. So it's 45 units. They are all 1-bedroom apartments, all for seniors age 62 and up. They are all built for aging in place, meaning every unit is accessible for ADA compliance. We do have a certain number of set-asides for folks who have an ADA preference, but as a practical matter, every apartment is the same. They all have roll-in showers. They all have grab bars. They are all meant for aging in place, which is really helpful. So there is not a bathtub to be found in this building. Makes sense. We do have some special units set aside for folks with sensory impairment needs. That typically means hearing or vision loss. And how that looks in a building is you might have louder alarms, you might have a strobe alarm. That's really the only main difference is in terms of like public safety features. We will happily accept all mobile housing vouchers of any kinds, Section 8, MRVP, veterans vouchers, anything like that. We are happy to take them. There is a local preference on the initial lease up for applicants who live or work in the town of Wenham already. And this is an important element that was requested of us by the town of Wenham, and we are happy to provide it. So we were actually able to obtain the maximum allowable limit within state law, which ends up being 31 units or 69% of the apartments at Maple Woods will have local preference for Wenham residents or applicants during the initial lease up. And what's good about that for the town of Wenham is that it does allow them to continue to build towards their subsidized housing inventory, which is known as the SHI in the state inventory. So a lot of benefits in terms of increasing access to folks in the community. The rental amounts that I'll go through in a minute do include free on-site parking and all utilities. I mean it. The only thing that you'd have to pay for is your Wi-Fi in your unit or cable. So if you are desperate to have HBO and all of the fancy channels, that will be on you. But all of the regular utilities are included in your rental amount. So I think folks can understand that's a huge asset right now in this market. Some additional property features, there will be laundry on every floor. There's not laundry in each unit. That's mostly a design element. Some of it's for safety, but some of it's for space. To put laundry in the unit requires more space. And so we were trying to maximize living space and put laundry on every floor. There'll be community gardens. There'll be a computer room for residents. There's a library and common lounge areas. Some of the units, but not all, have private porches and patios. So not all of them, but some of them do. There'll be an on-site resident service coordinator. And what that means is if there's someone there, let's say you need to get a ride to the doctor or a ride to the grocery store, or you need someone to come in and help you with cleaning your apartment or cooking or whatever it might be, there will be an on-site service coordinator that will help you coordinate those services as you need them. There are on-site walking trails adjacent to conservation land. And this picture right here is taken about a month ago, I want to say, but you know, the property is in construction. We had a groundbreaking, was that 2 or 3 weeks ago, Gary and Wynn, maybe 2 weeks ago. So it is actually advanced from this point, but it is nestled right there, kind of farther back from the road on Maple Street. It's a brand new building. It'll have tile bathrooms, big windows, wood look vinyl plank flooring, modern kitchen appliances, everything brand new. And given the location there on Maple Street, it's close to downtown and 97 and 128. One of the other features I wanted to highlight is there are a number of environmental features built in. We as an organization value sustainability in our design, but we also know it's an important element to the community. So the building will be LEED Gold certified. All of the appliances are Energy Star rated. All of the fixtures are water sense rated for low flow. There'll be drought tolerant landscaping, and there will be solar on the roof. So from a building perspective, we're trying to do everything we can to return that into the community, which we know is important to everyone. What you see here is a layout of what we expect the units to look like. As all of them, again, are identical. So there may be, you know, the bathroom is on this side here, it's on the other side there, but fundamentally, this is a sample layout of what they look like. And you see there an artist rendering. You can imagine what it might look like in the end. So pretty good sized living space. The sample floor plan there is 638 square feet. So it's a good size for a 1-bedroom unit. Okay, next we're going to get into the really detailed part. So this is how the application process and lottery schedule will work. And I'll go fairly slow over this because it is a little bit complicated. So we have 2 different income levels for this property. The top line are sort of the 30% AMI levels, and I'll get to that in 1 second. What that means is if you are below $29,450 or below $33,650 for 2 people, you will pay 30% of your gross income towards the rent, regardless of what your income is, as long as you're below that level. If you're above that level, but below the next line down with those maximums of $58,920 and $67,320, there'll be a fixed rental range between that lower number and the higher number. And that will be sort of, it will be set based on your income within the higher group. and 2 different rental amounts based on your income. I'll come back to that in a second. I know that can seem confusing. Some key deadlines. Today is April 3rd, 2023, a little after 11 a.m. So we are now in public information session number 1. We'll do the same session again on June 1st at night right here. So if you want to come back again or you have friends who couldn't make it, we'll do it again. Really important deadline, September 1st at 4 o'clock. All application materials must be received in my hands or postmarked with that date. The reason it's such a firm cutoff is you have to have a limit. If it wasn't 4 o'clock and we said 5, we'd get things at 5:10. If we said end of business, we would get things at 1 a.m. So there has to be a deadline, and it is very strict. So unfortunately, sometimes we get applicants who come to our office at 4:15 and they're technically late. They are late for the lottery. If you are going to email me some follow-up documentation and you hit send on the email and I get it at 4:07, it is late and I cannot consider it. So if you're thinking about applying for this lottery, I ask you to do it now. So we have time to process it, go back and forth, have no unresolved questions, because if we're still going back and forth after 4 o'clock on September 1st, we can't consider your materials. It's considered late. On October 3rd, right here, again, same bat time, same bat channel, we will do the actual lottery. And the lottery is like the Powerball. There will be a bowl with numbers and we will pick the numbers out and it will be very exciting. And that will happen here, same format, some in person, some on Zoom. Then after that, we'll start what's known as the lease-up period for all the applicants in the lottery. So the lottery application process is sort of like your pre-approval for a mortgage. If you actually execute and sign the lease, there will be a ton more documentation you have to provide. So the lottery is sort of the beginning phase. The lease-up period for those awarded units will be a lot more documentation and paperwork. And then right now we are projecting occupancy in either January or February of next year. We don't have a firm date on this, and it's mostly because of electrical equipment and getting it into the country. So electrical equipment like switchgear and transformers, all of the things that are actually required to power up the building are stuck in a supply chain, believe it or not. We're doing our best to expedite that, but everyone in the world wants electrical switchgear right now. So that would really be the only reason that things could get delayed during the construction phase. You also just never know. I don't know if anyone here has ever built a building, but sometimes things happen you cannot expect. So that occupancy is based on everything going well, construction staying on schedule, the switchgear arriving on time, the elevator arriving on time, all these sort of different things. So that is our projected period. Okay, I'm going to read through this and then we're going to make sure everyone answers questions. We answer these sort of really common questions. So frequently asked questions. Question, why are the multiple rents listed for the same unit type? At Maple Woods, apartments will be offered for applicants at 2 different income levels, 30% AMI and 60% AMI. AMI stands for Area Median Income, and this is a metric used by HUD to determine income eligibility for affordable housing across the country. Applicants whose gross annual income is below the maximum amount for 30% AMI units will pay 30% of their gross income toward the rent, regardless of what that may be, because we've received state and federal funding in the form of project-based vouchers, PBV. For example, if you were a single person making $21,000 a year, you would pay roughly $7,000 towards your rent, and that would include those utilities we talked about. For those 30% AMI units, the rent are based on income. Someone making $21,000 a year would not pay the same as someone making 10, but you would pay the same percentage. I'm going to pause for a moment. Does that make sense to folks in the room? Yes, some nods. Okay. If your gross annual income pushes you into the higher group, the 60% AMI limit, but so below 60% but above 30, the rent will be fixed at a range between the contract rent and the maximum allowable rent. We typically set our contract rent to be 80% of the maximum allowable rent for units that don't have project-based vouchers. And just like the limits themselves, I have to move this. I don't know where to move this. There's really no good place to move it. I'm so sorry. The maximum allowable rent is set by HUD on an annual basis. So I'm going to go back one slide. I want you to think about the words contract rent and maximum allowable rent. So on the screen, the second line, the lower number, that 1262, that's the contract rent. That's 80% of the maximum allowable rent, which is the higher number. That's what those two numbers mean. So if you fast forward, it might be hard to see. These are the 2022 HUD income limits. And as you can see, the box in red is where we are, and the highlighted rows are where Maple Woods is falling. We are part of the Boston, Cambridge, Quincy Metropolitan Service Area, sometimes known as the Boston MS. So you see, HUD actually sets the income limits that we are governed by on an annual basis. And for this property, for this lottery process, we're governed by the 30% AMI units and the tax credit 60% AMI units. And that's where those income limits came from. So this is. Then if you go forward to the next slide, they also set the maximum allowable rents. So if you're wondering, where did that 1578 number come from? It comes from HUD. That's the maximum allowable rent that you could charge on a 1-bedroom, 60% AMI unit. So this is the math that we have to work within. Again, Harborlight, because we recognize that there's an income range, we set the contract rent to be a bit lower, right? We create a range for people, so you're not always at the maximum. We actually will voluntarily take a lower amount, which is the contract rent based on your income. Any questions about this part? Yes.
Places, locations.
Yep.
Is that the same?
It's the same as long as the property is governed by the same AMI. So the question for those on Zoom is, are these numbers the same for all the properties? And yes, the short answer is yes. Sometimes you'll see a property at a 50% AMI level. Sometimes you'll see a property at an 80% AMI level. The income level is set by the developer based on sort of the financial structure of the building. So we've chosen to build as some 30 units, or could build units that are only at 80% or all at 50%. You sort of see everything. So whatever the developer sets it, it will be true for that AMI, which is set on an annual basis for our entire region. Does that help?
Give me if this sounds like a stupid question, this gross income.
This is annual gross income. Not a stupid question. Okay.
Hi, Anna, are you able to take Zoom questions or no?
I will. Go ahead. Do you want to? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Anna. You and I go way back. Hi, this is Sarah. Quick question. I just want to clarify for everyone who's listening. If you fall in between the 29,450 and 43,282, you're really not eligible for this housing development, correct? There's like this $13,000 window that you're disqualified for.
Sort of. And that's actually a really good lead in to the next question. But yes, there's a bit of a gap. It's almost like you read my mind. Okay. So what Sarah is getting at is, if you go back to those income limits are on your flyer, there's a maximum income, but there's also a minimum income. So that's literally, Sarah, that is my next Q&A here is, why is there a minimum income for the 60% units? The answer is that we establish a minimum income limit so that applicants won't pay more than 35% of your monthly income toward rent. We calculate that by taking the monthly contract rent, right, the lower amount, and we annualize it for gross income. And that's where we came up with the 43,282. If rent constitutes more than 35% of your monthly income, residents are considered cost burdened, which creates hardship, stress, and financial instability. So what that means in simpler terms is, if you're paying, 30, 35 or more, 40%, 50% of your income towards rent, you don't really have a margin. So then when you have a medical bill or your car breaks down or something comes up and you need to have it, you don't really have any flexibility. So you typically see cost burdening coming into effect at the 30% limit. Harborlight goes up a little bit higher because we recognize that 30% is pretty tight. So we go to 35% to determine the minimum income. So to your point, Sarah, yes, there is a little bit of a gap between the top of the 30% and the bottom of the 60%. If we had units that were at every possible income limit, that might be alleviated a little bit. So it is an issue. There's not much we can do about that because, again, of those HUD limits, the minimum and the maximum. We have to work with the numbers we get. So it's a really good question. And part of the reason I put it into the FAQ is because Sarah called me about it not long ago to say, what does this mean? So does that help answer your question? Oh, she's gone. I guess so.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And I appreciate it.
Okay. Next question. Are single applicants or people under 62 eligible? Unfortunately not. This entire development has a hard 62 and up age restriction. This includes folks who might be disabled who are less than 62. So oftentimes you see that's known as a disability exception, and you sometimes see it in public housing, right? You'll have senior housing and those who are disabled but not 62. This property does not have a disability exception. So everyone who lives there has to be at least 62. If you were a couple and one, you know, the wife is 65 but married a younger man and the man is only 57, they would not be eligible as a couple. Both have to be age 62 by the date of the lottery on October 3rd of this year. Okay, next question, which I apologize again, I'm just gonna keep moving this around. Question, are there any 2 or 3 bedroom apartments in Maple Woods? The answer is no, everything is a 1 bedroom unit. Not have anything, so we have no 2 bedrooms. Everything's 1 bedroom. In terms of the occupancy, you can have a maximum of 2 people in that 1 bedroom. So if you say to yourself, you know, you have an adult child, or I'm not actually sure how, maybe you want to live with your siblings, the 62 would be tricky. So, but if you had 3 people that were all age 62, you couldn't say voluntarily, someone's going to sleep on the couch and someone's going to be in the bedroom. The state sanitary code is governing occupancy relative to square footage. So it's 2 people most in the 1 bedroom units. You see that more of an issue with family housing. Sometimes you'll see people who say, I don't mind sleeping in the living room. I want my kids to see that. It's not something that's allowable based on the state sanitary code. Okay, next question. What if a member of your household doesn't have any income, which sometimes happens? If you don't have any income, you have to submit a certified letter of 0 income. I have a form that I could send to you, but you can also just write it on a piece of paper. I, Anna Siedzik, certified that I have 0 income. You get it notarized and you submit it. So it's fairly straightforward. It doesn't happen very often, but it does sometimes happen. For some reason, someone just has no income. This is a really important one, especially for our senior applicants. Is there an asset limit? The answer is no. In accordance with HUD regulations, there is no asset limit for households seeking apartments in Maple Woods. As applicable, the higher of actual income earned from assets or the imputed income of 0.06%, which is the current HUD federal passbook rate, will be counted as income. Assets calculated at the time of application may include cash, stocks, checking and savings accounts, investment accounts, property, CDs, annuities, whole life policies, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to pause here because this one comes up a lot. It is expected that many seniors at some point in your life worked for a long time. You have a retirement account, maybe you have a CD, maybe you used to own a house and you sold it and you have a big pile of cash sitting in a bank account. That is all okay. That is all okay. You do not have to be bereft of any assets. What we do is, as described, we take the higher of 2 different things. So let's say you have an annuity, and let's say that you draw $1,000 a month to help supplement your income from Social Security. We would count that income from that annuity as part of your income. Let's say you didn't draw a monthly amount. Let's say you had interest and dividend income. How many people in this room have interest or dividend income? Probably a lot, right? So let's say you it earns rate times whatever, we'll take the higher of those 2 numbers. Does that make sense? Sort of. Oh no, we're unstable. Okay, next question. Are pets allowed? Next one. I still own my own home, but I want to move in this development. Can I apply for the lottery? And the answer is yes, you can. And if you are selected for a unit, you will have to sell your house. Your affordable unit has to be your principal full-time residence. So to apply for the lottery, you don't know what's going to happen. You do not have to put your house on the market tomorrow. You can have your house, you can apply, you can wait and see. But if you are selected and if you start the leasing process, then yes, you would have to sell your home. The idea being that if you have a home, you don't need affordable housing. You have to prioritize the housing for people who have no place else to live. So it's fairly straightforward. But again, going back to the assets, you sell your house. In this real estate market, you might make a tidy profit. You can put that into an account and we'll include that as part of our asset calculation. Last question, which actually we get a lot. It's pretty funny. I like to go away for the winter. Can I sublease or rent out my apartment? And the answer is no, you may not sublease your apartment to someone else or operate it as an Airbnb. This is a true story. A lot of people think you can do that and you cannot. The affordable unit, again, has to be your principal full-time residence. However, we are not draconian landlords. We know that you like to go away. You might have to visit family. You might want to go on a trip. As long as you are not away from the apartment for 6 weeks a year, that is completely fine. Again, the idea being if you have someplace else to go, you don't really need to have the housing, and we don't want to be having vacant apartments when we know there's such a need. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So far, so good. All right, let's talk a little bit about the actual lottery process. So when we get to the lottery, there will be two pools. As I explained before, there's going to be a local pool, which will be for anyone who currently lives or works in the town of Wenham. That will be the local pool. And then there'll also be an open pool. And that includes all of the people who live and work in Wenham, as well as everybody else. So if you are a Wenham resident only for the initial lease up, you actually get pulled twice. You get two opportunities. The reason we do that is that some of these units, remember, we have 31 units that have the local preference. We will first look to fill those from the local pool. If we get to the end of the local pool and we have no more local applicants, then we will go to the open pool, which will still include Wenham people again, but you have two different opportunities. So you have two different pools, two different draw orders, and there's a very set sequence that is governed by federal fair housing regulations. So we draw all the applicants from the local pool, then the open pool, then we award the ADA and sensory units, then we'll award the local preference units after that. And then anything else that's left over will go to the open pool. And then long term, meaning 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the wait list will be drawn from the open pool. Question? Yep.
If someone is living in Wenham and they're also in the open pool, can they be drawn as part of the open pool, or because they're living in Wenham and you've already filled the 31 Wenham slots, they're disqualified?
No, they'll be drawn both times. So trying to have a good way to answer that question. The lottery happens all at once. So we do the local draw with one color tabs, and then we do the open draw with a different color tab. And everyone that was in the local pool is also in the open pool. So once we work through the local list, we will then shift to the open pool, but it all happens kind of at the same time. So then once all 31 of those local units are full with a local person, right, that constitutes the end of the initial lease up. So let's say we get to that point, we get to March 2024, the building is full, the local units have been assigned. Let's say someone who initially was in a local preference unit moves, decides they hate living there, passes away, whatever it might be, wins the lottery and now does have $50 million and the passbook rate, you know, whatever might happen to them, we would fill that unit with someone from the open pool. The local preference is only for that first lease up. Once the person is there, but then moves out, we have to fill it from the open pool. So that's point number 7, that the wait list will be created from the open pool draw order. And that's state regulation, where you can only have local preference for the initial lease up.
If you have family that live with, is that?
It's got to be you. Got to be you.
If you don't get the maximum 31 applicants for the local, do those openings become open?
They do. So there is an incentive for Wenham residents to fill local preference. You know, this is the moment to do that. If we don't have enough Wenham residents apply, we're not going to keep them vacant. We will offer them to people who do not have local preference. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been scheduled for 4 years now for Wenham
Okay.
and Hamilton, and I've yet to get drawn. And will they allow me automatically be put on this?
I think you must be on a different wait list, because you must be on a different wait list, or is it for? So we have no involvement. Are you talking about with Enon Village?
Yeah.
So we are not Enon Village. This is a totally separate developer. We do not operate public housing. We operate affordable housing. So to answer your question, no, you would not. There's no transfer between those wait lists. You don't. but you don't. You can apply, of course, but there, we don't. It's an interesting question because there's some conversation about having some sort of universal wait list, or you have it in some ways would make some sense, but yeah. What'd you say? Yeah, it just doesn't work like that. Every property is its own development. So it's a little bit different. So any other questions? Yeah.
We're already on Harborlight Homes wait list. Do you reapply or do you, what does that do to you? What you make it happen?
So it's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. Every property in the lottery phase has a specific application, and that's one of the fine pieces of print on the back of it. Every entity, it's actually a separate legal entity. So even though Harborlight Homes is the management company and we're doing this, Turtle Creek is not the same as Turtle Woods, which is not the same as Maple Woods, which is not the same as Rockport High School. We have involvement with all of them, but they're different entities. So you do have to apply for the lottery. We're actually in the process of creating a more universal wait list only for our properties, not for public housing, but for our properties, because we recognize it's a bit of a burden. The best analogy I can give to you about how to manage a wait list, it's like you're going to Market Basket the day before Thanksgiving. Okay. And it's a madhouse. You get in a line and your kids get in a line, your spouse gets in a line, you put your neighbor in a line, you put the dog in a line. Whatever person gets to the register first is the one you take. But you want to be on as many wait lists as possible because you never know how quickly they're going to move or not move. The worst thing that happens, if you get to the top of a wait list, you say, I'm not interested. I've already moved here. I don't like it. There's no obligation to take it if you're on a wait list. You just say no. And we move on. So it's a really good question. Anything else? No? Okay, I'm going to go to my last slide, which is just how do we get an application? So you can get applications on our website. You can email us and we'll send you a PDF. You can get them in person. I have a whole pile of them in the back of the room. Wenham Town Hall, Council on Aging has them. The library has them. So anyone who needs an application, we're happy to provide them. We have them in English and in Spanish and in Portuguese. But if for some reason you need them in another language, we have a full service translation service. So we can get them in any language you might desire, but we always translate to the three most common languages of Tennessee. And if you have any questions about any aspect of it, that is me. I am Anna Siedzik, the lottery agent, and that's my email address and my phone number. So yes, question in the back.
Going to be allocated by preference, I guess is my question, or so I was hearing you say earlier that most of the units have some private outdoor space.
Right, yep.
Are those, if you're sort of in the one, are there 31 of those where people from Wenham would be able to have that, or how do you draw the actual units and who gets it?
Right, it's a good question. So there's a document that we have to produce. It's called the stacking plan for the state. And what it does is, as every unit is individually identified by its preferences and its funding sources, and the state requires you to mix them up. So they do that so you don't have a concentration of all local people in one spot, or all the people at the 30% group in one end of the building and 60%. You have to distribute the ADA units around. So it's very much like a stew, right? So within a wing of the building, you'll have a 30% handicap unit here. You'll have a 60% local unit here. You'll have a sensory unit there. So it's all mixed up. Within that, then it kind of is sort of like low to high, right? Like unit 101 would likely go to the person who had the highest draw order. Unit 102, you just work your way through. So let's say you were a Wenham resident and you were number 17. By that point, you might end up with unit 204, and that would be what you would be assigned. And you wouldn't really have flexibility on that, where it's not like a real estate transaction where you can look at it and say, you know, I want the one that has the sunny side and I want this. It doesn't work like that. It's a little more formulaic, but that's because of that stacking plan, so that you purposely mix up all of the residents in the building.
Otherwise you can't choose a unit, like if you want to live on the second floor, not necessarily a unit, but preference of a floor.
We can't, yeah. We do. It's based on the draw order. So it's,
Space.
well, like I said, we typically sort of start low to high. You know, we could start top to bottom. But no, because then they don't. It's not like, I see what you're saying. It is not like a Yankee swap. There's no real advantage to being number one. You don't get to trade later. So what you're assigned is what you're assigned. And that's sort of a fundamental fairness issue, you know, that we want people, there is a lottery in terms of getting a unit, but if we were allowed you to choose, I want a third floor corner unit with a balcony, who doesn't? Like everyone wants that. You get that, but then this nice lady in the front who might have been drawn later, you know, she gets nothing. She gets the first floor unit next to the trash room. So, you know, we have to have some sort of regimented way to do it that is fundamentally fair to everybody. So it's a good question.
All floors. That's carpeted.
They are not carpeted. They're vinyl thing. You can always put carpets down and do whatever you want, but yeah, there's no carpeting.
Your soundproof. the apartments.
Well, so it's not like soundproofing like a rock concert, but everything is built to, you know, modern construction code. This is maybe a better question for Kristen Carlson on our architectural design team, but you know, it's going to be wooden frame, it will be sheetrock, there will be insulation between all of the rooms. So I would say I wouldn't say it has soundproofing per se, but it has you know, to code built for multifamily, you know, multifamily dense housing.
Another question, would there be an option that you could put a washer dryer in your unit?
No, there will not be hookups. The question for the folks on Zoom, could you have an individual hookup? And the answer is no, they'll be on the floor. Any other questions?
What about wall frames?
Wall decorations?
Can you hang things on the wall that you choose, or they're?
Oh yeah, no, you can. There will probably be. I'd have to go back and look at the lease. We have some restrictions about what kind of hangers. You know, you can't put like, you know, a carriage bolt with a 1-inch diameter. You know, you can't put a hammock in your living room. You know, you can't hang something that heavy. But of course, you can put up pictures and you know, standard hooks and things like that. You can put up drapery. I believe that there will be blinds in the living room and the bedrooms, but you can always add your own curtains if you have something. I mean, it will be your home, so you can decorate it as like within reason. You know, you can't. To paint. No, we typically don't allow painting of the wall color. I can check on that, but that's not usually something that we do. We try to. No, I can go back to the rendering. Let me get, if that's helpful. I mean, I'm not sure what the wall color was specified. I think it's a neutral kind of eggshell color. I don't think that they're bright red or, you know, velvet purple or anything like that. So, it's without seeing a finished unit, I can't tell you exactly what the wall color is, but I'm sure it's something sort of boring and neutral, HUD color of some kind.
So there will be rules and regulations given out later on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you'll be subject to the lease terms, and then of course there are house rules. I don't have it. No, I don't have it with me right now. There'll always be, you know, quiet hours, right? You know, certain times that you can and cannot do laundry, certain times you can or cannot have a dance party with your neighbors, things like that, but all within reason, right? I mean, you just sort of general terms of living in a communal space together. It is. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh, and I do want to ask you, is the parking going to be in front of the building or behind the building?
It's actually going to be kind of all around the building. Yeah, it's sort of, I think the layout, I don't have the overall layout, but there'll be parking on all sides of the building and around. So. Yep. Yeah, there will be woods behind it. I mean, there's not going to be a parking garage or anything like that. Everything is surface level parking and whatnot. So, yes, sir. To maintenance?
Yeah.
Oh, we are responsible for all of that. So if something is broken, you will call the either the on-site maintenance person who will probably be assigned to this building, and probably share, we do have a full-time maintenance staff of 9 people that move around across the building. So if your light fixture breaks, if the sink backs up, if the toilet is leaking, if the heat's not working, like whatever it is, you would call, you'd probably let the property manager know, or you would call the emergency number. You know, let's say it's over the weekend or after hours, we have a 24/7 on-call emergency number. So you will not have to repair your own plumbing. We will take care of all that.
How many exits to and from your
How many doors to your unit?
exits?
So you would have your main door, and then if you had a patio or balcony, there would be another door. So a minimum of 1, I would think a maximum of 2, but no more than that.
Access to the building, you're marked while you're there and you have to come around to the main entrance, or will there be other entrances?
There are other entrances, and they'll be controlled with an electronic fob. So you would swipe into the building. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, in the back.
Curious about the rule that was set down by not allowing pets, but only service dogs or sport dogs.
Hmm.
Whereas at some of your other residences, like Hidden Creek and the other turtle.
Turtle Woods, the turtles. Yep.
Why the differentiation in companies not allow, I don't know, multiple Rockport, I believe, that's
Yeah, I can't speak.
why.
I can't speak to the full decision of that, especially for the older properties. I can say that each program has sort of different fundamental programs. So the turtles are HUD properties. This is a tax credit property. But I think it's more of a management decision that pets are can create problems in a variety of ways. So it's not that we don't like them, but it creates a management issue in some ways. So I wouldn't say it's a hard and fast rule. It's sort of a case by case basis, but we are in general shifting towards not allowing pets, but always having service and support animals. Let's go to the back. Sure. It's this is rendering as I have to get close to. Sorry, Zoom people, you got a big view of my forehead there. 10.5 by 13 and 7. It's the size of the bedroom. So about 130 square feet, more or less. In the front.
Does anything go to the mail room or to packages and to be delivered to the room?
Typically we have a central mailroom with a box, and then usually packages are put someplace central near those near the mailboxes. So I think it would depend. I think sometimes our property manager or service coordinators might bring something to your door, but typically there's sort of a central area where mail goes
They don't.
from the mailroom to your apartment.
Well, say UPS comes with a very large package
Yeah.
and you can't get it up to your unit.
Oh, I think we would help you with that, either maintenance or the service coordinator or the property manager. Sure.
I assume, sort of question, that there is no other storage for a resident than closet.
There is, yes, my understanding, there's no separate storage locker. That's a good question. Sometimes you do see that. Yeah, we don't have resident storage on site in the units. So I'm going to go back to any other slides, any other details, any other pictures? No? Okay. Does anybody on the Zoom have some questions? I'm going to go into the chat here. Let's see. Let's see. Question about storage. Have the FAQs. Smoking is not allowed. It's a good question. And all of these stoves are electric. Everything is electric.
I don't know the name.
How do you put your name in for it? I'll hand you an application at the end of this. Okay. All right. Any other questions in the Zoom? No. One thing I will mention about the application, I'm going to go ahead and stop the share just so we can see each other a little better. One thing I will say about the applications, the new applications, we have some big red warning signs. In order to be processed for the lottery, you do have to provide income and asset information. And so when you submit your application, make sure you give me your social security statement, your bank statements. If you have those investment accounts, whatever you might have, make sure that you give me a copy of those. It's all described in the application. The number one reason people end up not being eligible for the lottery is because we're missing documents of some kind. If you're missing something, we will call you, we'll send you a letter. It says we must receive this by such and such a date. But, you know, most of the time, that's the number one reason is you just didn't give us a piece of paper that we have to complete the file. So be very thorough as you're looking through your application.
Say tax thing is missing.
I absolutely do. I spend many hours of my day trying to reach people and let them know. If you, let's say you don't have your documents, if a child or you have someone else who's helping you with your application, you can sign a third-party release to let me talk to them to get that information. So whatever it takes to get the information into our hands, we're happy to work with folks. And you'll have at least 2 messages. You'll usually it'll be a phone call first, might be a letter after that. You might get a desperate email, but usually after 2 or 3 times, if we don't get a response, then. But we do chase a lot for those documents because we don't want people to be missed out.
How do I know that you got it?
Once it's in and it is, yeah, so we have another lottery tonight. True confession, we have another lottery tonight. And so what I've been doing is holding all of the Maple Woods applications. We do have a log. So I actually have the log on my computer. If you want afterwards, I can look it up and tell you. We log every application as it comes in and we date stamp it. So yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a good question. And then once we're done processing, you'll get a letter that says, "Dear Mary, part with it. Dear whoever, dear Anna, you have been entered into the lottery. Your lottery number is 12. And actually on that point, I'll say. Yeah, we we do. I can look it up later. One thing I will say about the lottery number, you'll be assigned a number and that's for your anonymity. So when we actually go to the number and you have all the little slips of paper, it won't have your name on it. We'll have no identifying information. It will literally be a number so that when we pull that number out and say 20, you might know you're number 20. I'll know that you're number 20. No one else will know. And I'm never the person who pulls the tickets. We have a division of labor there. So I assign the numbers, but I never pull the numbers. And just for fun information, we make sure everything is cut with a rotary cutter. Every square is 1 inch by 1 inch square. It's the same thickness of cardstock. So no one can say, you know, this ticket was thicker than another. This one had a fluffy edge or, you know, whatever it is. Every little piece of paper is identical during the lottery. Any other questions? No? Any other questions on the Zoom? Have a lot of participants, but it sounds like no, it seems we're pretty good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out the Zoom. My contact information was there. You can also find it on the website. So if anyone has questions about the process, please reach out. Again, the lottery deadline is September 1st. The earlier, the better. So I'm going to end the Zoom. I'll be here in the room for people who have questions. And I'm sorry, Gary, where are you saving this question? Oh, okay. The hazards of group Zoom. It really depends. Our most recent lotteries have been heavily over enrolled. So for the family housing we built in Beverly last year, we had over 700 applicants for 30 minutes. For the lottery we're hosting tonight for the Rockport property, we've had almost 500 applicants for 23 units. So what we're seeing in the marketplace is the demand is immense. So I would expect actually this to be a very popular lottery because of the location, the amenities, the size of the units. You know, it's very conveniently located. I would expect, I hazard a guess, but if we got almost 500 people for Rockport, which is far for some people and Wenham is very central, I would not be at all surprised if we 700, 800 people for this development. So one more question. Yep. We have not. It's a good question. The question for the Zoom is for Briscoe. Those will be available in August. Yep. August will be the Briscoe lottery starts.
So you can get your name on.
We have a list of people to receive applications for Briscoe. Yep. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this down and answer any other questions. So thank you, everyone, for being here, and please follow up if you have other questions. Bye, everybody.